headlights cut through the empty highway, but the silence was louder than the hum of the engine. I had been driving for hours, and yet, it was not the exhaustion that gnawed at me, it was the memory of those eyes. The way they followed me from the motel parking lot. Unblinking. Predatory. It was 2015. I was supposed to be on a road trip filled with nothing more than music, gas station coffee, and the anticipation of my father's birthday. A simple journey. But that night, at a nameless motel off the interstate, something shifted. Something began watching me. I remember stepping out of my car, stretching my back under the buzzing neon sign of the old roadside lodge. That was when I saw him. A man, maybe in his late 40s or early 50s, standing still in the shadows near the vending machine. He didn't move, didn't speak, didn't smoke or shuffle his feet like someone killing time. He only stared. His gaze was sharp, like a blade pressed against the back of my neck. At first, I forced myself to laugh it off. Some drifter, I thought, or maybe a guy who's just high. But when I turned the key to my room, the hairs on my arms stood on end. That man hadn't looked away once. I locked the door behind me, pulled the curtains tight, sat on the edge of the bed with my heart pounding louder than the TV I turned on just for noise. But no matter how much I tried to bury myself in the static glow of late-night shows, I couldn't shake the image of his eyes unwavering, patient, watching. The next morning, I left before the sun was fully up. I wanted distance, miles between me and that motel. I told myself it was over, that I'd never see him again. But I was wrong. An hour into the drive, I noticed it. A red Toyota Corolla in my rearview mirror. Nothing unusual at first, cars share highways all the time. But it wasn't just on the highway with me. It was with me. Mile after mile. Exit after exit. Always 2 cars back. Never overtaking. Never falling away completely. I tightened my grip on the wheel. Maybe it was paranoia. Maybe it wasn't even the same man. But then, when I stopped at a rest area for coffee, the Corolla eased in 2 minutes later. I didn't stay. Back on the road. My knuckles were white. Every signpost blurred. Every radio song turned into background static. And still, the Corolla followed. By the time the gas light blinked on, I was desperate. The next station was 50 miles away, according to the faded sign. 50 miles of open desert, flat and bare. No cover. No escape. And behind me, the red Corolla rolled on. When I finally pulled into that lonely station, the sun was low, bleeding orange into the horizon. The place looked abandoned, one flickering light above the pump. A dusty convenience store with a rusted ice machine out front. I told myself to act normal. Swipe the card. Pump the gas. Get back in the car. Keep moving. But then the Corolla turned in. I froze. The passenger door opened, and my stomach dropped. It was him. The man from the motel. He stepped out slowly, almost casually, as though this was a meeting he'd been expecting all along. Our eyes locked, and the same cold dread from the motel rushed back, flooding me. Then, without warning, he broke into a run. He came straight for my car. The handle rattled. He yanked hard, trying to tear the door open. My pulse hammered as I slammed the lock button, fumbling for the gear shift. His face was right there, inches from mine through the glass, twisted into a grin so wide it didn't look human. But the worst part wasn't him. It was the driver. I hadn't noticed until then. But someone else was behind the wheel of the Corolla. A shadowy figure sat calmly, watching, hands resting on the steering wheel. They weren't just chasing me. They were together. And they had been following me for more than 10 hours. I hit the gas. The nozzle ripped out, spilling fuel as I lurched forward. Tires squealed against cracked concrete. In the mirror, I saw him stumble back, laughing a sound I could almost hear through the glass. That laugh told me one thing. This wasn't over. The highway stretched before me like a vein across the desert, pale and endless under the fading light. My heart still thundered from the gas station, from the way his hands clawed at my car door, from that grotesque grin burned into my brain. I drove too fast, tearing through the silence as though speed alone could erase what had happened. But every time I checked the mirror, my stomach knotted. For 20 miles. Nothing. No headlights behind me. No sign of the Corolla. I started to think I'd lost them, that maybe my panic had exaggerated things. Maybe they had only been passing through, playing some sick prank. But then, as dusk surrendered to night, 2 pinpricks of light appeared in the rearview. They grew steadily brighter, aligning perfectly with my lane. The Corolla. I swallowed hard, my throat dry as sandpaper. Whoever they were, they hadn't given up. They wanted me to know they were there. Not close enough to ram me. Not far enough to vanish, just close enough to remind me I was prey. I tried to think rationally. Should I call the police? Yes. I grabbed my phone, fumbling it with clammy hands. No signal. Not a single bar. The desert swallowed everything. I pressed the accelerator harder, but the Corolla kept pace. 10 hours. I thought. They've been following me for 10 hours. For what? What did they want? My car wasn't worth much. I had no money. Nothing valuable. But their persistence wasn't about theft. It was about me. And that realization chilled me deeper than the desert night. I spotted a green sign glowing faintly in the dark. Exit 112. Smallville. Population 384. My pulse quickened. A town. Maybe a diner. A police station. Anything. I took the ramp too fast, my tires squealing as I careened into the dimly lit exit road. The Corolla followed. The road narrowed into cracked asphalt lined with shuttered buildings. A gas station long closed, its pumps wrapped in yellow tape. A grocery with plywood nailed across its windows. The entire town looked abandoned, a skeleton of what it once was. And yet, at the far end, a single diner glowed faintly, neon buzzing, an open sign swaying in the wind. I pulled in fast, parking crookedly near the door. Heart pounding, I stumbled out, forcing myself into the diner. The smell of fried grease hit me first. Inside, it looked like time had stopped in the 1970s. Final booths. Checkered floors. A jukebox in the corner. An elderly waitress stood behind the counter. Her gray hair pulled into a bun. Her face lined but kind. She looked up, startled by the urgency in my steps. "Evenin', Aunt," she said. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I glanced through the window. The Corolla parked across the lot. Its headlights turned off, but I could feel them watching. Waiting. "I need to use your phone," I stammered. The woman raised an eyebrow, but she didn't hesitate. She slid a cordless phone across the counter. My hands shook as I dialed 911. The line crackled, then went dead. "No service out here," the waitress said softly, as though she'd seen this before. My chest tightened. I looked back out the window. The Corolla doors stayed shut, but I swore I could see movement inside. The waitress must have seen my panic. She leaned in close, lowering her voice. "Who's out there, hon?" I told her everything: the motel, the man in the shadows, the endless hours on the highway, the gas station, the grin. As I spoke, her face drained of color. "You say he laughed?" she whispered. "Yes." What? Her eyes darted toward the window, then back to me. "You should leave. Right now. Don't look back. Just drive." Her urgency rattled me. "Wait, do you know them?" She shook her head quickly. "Doesn't matter who they are. If they've chosen you, they won't stop." My blood ran cold. She slipped something into my Hondan old brass key, heavy and worn. "Back door. Go. Don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you leave." I hesitated. Her hand tightened on mine. "Please," she said, her voice trembling. "I've seen this before." I slipped out the back, the desert night pressing heavy against me. My car was on the far side of the diner, too exposed. Instead, I crept along the wall, the gravel crunching under my shoes sounding like thunder in my ears. From the corner of the building, I dared a glance. The passenger door of the Corolla was open. The man stood outside, motionless, his head tilted slightly upward as though sniffing the air. His posture was unnatural, stiff. His grin stretched even wider under the flickering neon light. I froze, my lungs screaming for air. Then, slowly, he turned his head. Our eyes met. My body reacted before my brain bolted. Sprinting across the dirt lot, I lunged into my car, slammed the locks, and twisted the key. The engine roared to life. The man laughed again, louder this time, echoing through the empty town like a sick hymn. He didn't chase. He didn't need to, because the moment I hit the road, headlights flared behind me. The Corolla. It had never left. I sped down the highway, weaving recklessly across lanes, desperate to lose them. But no matter what I did, slowing, accelerating, even taking detours, the Corolla matched me, mile for mile. Hours passed. My gas gauge sank again. My vision blurred with exhaustion. And still, they followed. At one point, I tried something different. I pulled onto a dirt road, cutting across the desert toward a cluster of hills. My tires kicked up clouds of dust as I swerved and jolted over uneven ground. For a brief, delirious moment, I thought I'd outsmarted them. Then, in my rear view, two beams cut through the dust. The Corolla was there. Always there. Something inside me snapped. I wasn't just scared anymore. I was furious. I slammed the brakes, skidding to a stop in the middle of the dirt road. My door flew open before I could talk myself out of it. "What the hell do you want?" I screamed into the night. "Why me?" The desert wind swallowed my words. The Corolla stopped 30 feet away. The driver's side door opened. A figure emerged. Tall, broad-shouldered, face hidden in shadow. He didn't move closer. He simply stood, silent, while the man from the motel climbed out from the passenger side, his grin unwavering. He took a step toward me. Another. I backed away, my hands trembling, my throat raw. Then he stopped, raised one hand, and pointed directly at me. No words, no sound. Just that gesture, deliberate and final. It was as though he was marking me, claiming me. I scrambled back into my car, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled. My breath came in ragged gasps as I sped away, gravel spraying like gunfire beneath my tires. In the mirror, they didn't chase this time. They just stood there, watching, their silhouettes swallowed by the desert night. But somehow, that was worse. Because I knew this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. The road blurred into an endless ribbon of asphalt, stretching across a desert that felt older than time. My eyelids burned from fatigue, but fear kept them wide open. Every time I thought I had shaken them, every time I believed I had left them behind, they found a way back. The man's grin haunted me, stamped into the back of my skull like a brand. And worse than his grin was the silence of the driver, the figure in shadows who had not spoken, not moved, only watched. By the time dawn crawled across the horizon, my gas tank was nearly empty again. My body screamed for rest. My mind begged me to pull over. But how could I? How could I stop when they were out there? Somewhere. Maybe just a few miles behind me. I spotted another town on the map, a bigger one this time. Benton. Population 8,000. A sheriff's department. Maybe even a small hospital. Civilization. Safety. Or so I prayed. When I rolled into Benton, sunlight painted the streets gold, and people moved about their lives like nothing was wrong. Mothers pushing strollers, men hauling boxes into trucks, teenagers on bikes. Normalcy. For the first time in 24 hours, I felt a fragile sense of hope. I pulled into the sheriff's office, a squat brick building with an American flag swaying lazily out front. Inside, the air smelled of old coffee and dust. A deputy sat at the front desk, his boots propped up, a newspaper in hand. He looked up lazily when I stumbled in. "Morning. You look like hell." There's a car following me," I blurted out, my voice cracking. "Two men. Honest God. I don't even know how to explain it. They've been after me for more than a day. Please, you have to help." The deputy frowned, lowering his boots. "Slow down, son. Where'd this happen?" I explained everything: the motel, the Corolla, the gas station, the diner, the desert. As I spoke, his expression shifted from skepticism to unease. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, exhaling through his nose. "We've had stories like that before." My heart lurched. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, glancing at the door behind him as though checking if anyone was listening. "People passing through. Always travelers. Always the same kind of story. A car. Someone watching. Sometimes a man. Sometimes more. Then nothing. Folks vanish." The room tilted under me. "Vanished." He nodded slowly. "We've never found bodies. Just cars. Abandoned miles out in the desert. Keys still in the ignition. Sometimes a shoe or a wallet on the roadside. But no people." I staggered back, the blood draining from my face. "And you're telling me this now?" The deputy rubbed his temples. We never had proof. No plates. No leads. They're ghosts on wheels. Before I could respond, the front door creaked open. A woman stepped in, middle-aged, sharp-eyed, her hair tied back in a severe bun. She wore plain clothes, but her posture screamed authority. "Sheriff," the deputy said quickly, standing. She gave me a long look. "What's this?" The deputy explained. The sheriff's eyes never left me. When he finished, she crossed her arms. "You're saying they've been following you since yesterday," she said. "Yes. They won't stop. I swear to you, if you let me go back out there alone, I'll disappear like the others." Her gaze was unflinching. "Did you see their faces?" "One of them, at the motel. He smiled at me, like he knew something I didn't. And the other, just a shadow. Always the driver. Never gets out." The sheriff's lips tightened. She exchanged a glance with the deputy. Something passed between them, fear. Maybe recognition. Then she said softly, "You're not crazy. You're lucky you made it here." I clutched the counter, desperate. "So you believe me?" Her silence was louder than denial. Finally, she spoke. "We'll put a patrol on the highway. You'll stay in town for the night. Motel down the street. We'll watch the roads in and out." Relief washed over me like rain on parched earth. For the first time in hours, I let myself breathe. That night, I checked into the Benton Motel. The room smelled of bleach and old cigarettes, but it had 4 walls, a lock, and a bed. Collapsed, my body giving in. I dreamed of headlights, of laughter echoing in the desert, of a grin stretching wider, wider, until it split the man's face in 2. When I jolted awake, the clock read 3:17 a.m. The room was dark. Too dark. Then came the sound. Tap, tap, tap. My blood turned to ice. Someone was at the window. I turned my head slowly. And there he was. The man from the motel. His face pressed against the glass, grinning into the darkness. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, fixed on me. Couldn't move. Couldn't scream. Tap, tap, tap. His fingers drummed against the window like a morbid lullaby. Then, without a sound, he stepped back. I scrambled to the curtains, yanking them open. Nothing. The parking lot was empty. The Corolla wasn't there. But deep down, I knew. He hadn't gone. They were never gone. By morning, the sheriff returned. I tried to explain what I'd seen, but the look in her eyes told me she already knew. She'd heard it all before. "You have 2 choices," she said grimly. "Stay here and hope they lose interest. Or leave, and pray you're faster." My hands shook. "What would you do?" She didn't hesitate. "I'd leave. Nobody ever beats them by waiting." So I drove. The desert swallowed me again. The town shrank behind me until it was just a dot in the mirror. For a brief, fragile moment, I believed I was free. Then, in the distance, 2 headlights bloomed on the horizon. Growing brighter. Growing closer. The Corolla. And this time, they weren't hiding anymore. The desert wind howled through the cracks of my windows. rattling them like brittle bones. The Corolla's headlights grew brighter, burning into my rearview mirror, erasing every fragile ounce of hope I had clung to since leaving Benton. They weren't waiting anymore. They weren't playing. They were hunting. I pressed harder on the accelerator, the engine groaning in protest. The speedometer climbed. 80. 90. The lines on the road blurred into a white stream. My heart pounded, each thud syncing with the thrum of my tires. The Corolla matched me, its headlights unwavering. They weren't trying to pass. They weren't trying to push me off the road. They just stayed behind me, close enough that I couldn't forget them. Close enough that every fiber of my body screamed that they were in control. I thought about my father, about the birthday I was supposed to be driving toward. The laughter, the clink of glasses, the warmth of family. Instead, I was trapped in this nightmare, chased through the desert by faceless shadows. Would I ever see him again? I tried to think. Options. I needed options. I scanned the horizon, nothing but scrub brush and sand. The occasional jagged rock formation rising like broken teeth from the earth. No towns. No exits. No hope of police out here. Then, in the distance, I saw it. A rest stop. Just a concrete building and a few dim lights. But it was something. Maybe there'd be people. Maybe cameras. Maybe salvation. I swerved hard onto the exit, gravel spitting beneath my tires. The Corolla followed without hesitation. The rest stop was nearly empty. A single semi-truck idled near the far end, its headlights off, the driver nowhere in sight. The building itself looked abandoned, its fluorescent lights flickering weakly, casting long, skeletal shadows across the pavement. I parked near the entrance, my hands trembling as I reached for the door handle. But then I froze. The Corolla didn't park. It stopped in the middle of the lot, engine humming low, headlights pointed directly at me. And then the driver's door opened. For the first time, I saw him. He stepped out slowly, his movements deliberate, calm like a predator who knew the prey had nowhere left to run. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his face obscured in shadow. His presence radiated something worse than menace. It radiated inevitability. The passenger door opened next, and out came the grinning man. He didn't run this time. He didn't need to. He simply walked, that same twisted smile carved into his face. His eyes locked on mine like a man savoring his victory. My body screamed at me to move, but I was frozen, trapped between fight and flight. The semi-truck's door suddenly banged open. A burly driver climbed down, stretching his arms. For a moment, relief surged through me. Witnesses. Help. Someone who could see this was real. But the driver didn't even glance at me. He looked directly at the two men. And he nodded. My blood turned to ice. The grinning man's smile widened, as if he'd been waiting for this reveal. The driver walked past me without a word, crossed the lot, and climbed into the Corolla. They weren't just two men. There were more. How many more? Panic exploded inside me. I yanked open my car door, dove inside, and slammed the locks. My hands fumbled with the keys, my breath ragged. The engine roared to life just as the grinning man reached my door. His palm slapped the window, hard enough to rattle it. But he didn't try to open it. He just leaned close, his lips curling back, his teeth bared in that inhuman smile. I floored it. My tires screeched as I tore out of the lot, narrowly missing the semi-truck. The Corolla's headlights flared behind me again. Not one set this time. Two. The semi's high beams ignited, blinding me in the mirror. They were multiplying. I screamed into the empty night, gripping the wheel until my knuckles ached. My car rattled, old and weak compared to their machines. I couldn't outrun them forever. Then I saw a sign. Mountain Pass 5 miles. Mountains. Twists. Turns. Cliffs. Dangerous roads. But maybe my only chance. They had the numbers. But maybe I had desperation. Maybe I could lose them where the road narrowed, where speed became risk. The next 5 miles felt eternal. Headlights crowded my rear view. Always there. Always too close. My car shuddered as the incline grew steep, the asphalt curling upward into jagged black hills. And then, finally, the road split into a serpentine trail carved into the mountainside. Guardrails lined the edge, flimsy and rusted, the cliffs dropping into nothingness beyond. I pressed harder. The curves were sharp, but I clung to the wheel, each turn a gamble between survival and death. Behind me, the Corolla stayed close, impossibly steady, as though the driver had memorized every inch of the road. Then, in the middle of a turn, I did something reckless. I killed the headlights. For a moment, the world vanished into pure black. My heart stopped. My hands turned the wheel blind. Gravel crunched beneath me, and then I flicked them back on. The Corolla had fallen back, swerving wide. Its tires screamed against the pavement. For the first time, I had space. Adrenaline surged through me. I pushed harder, faster, twisting through the mountain roads with wild abandon. But the victory was fleeting, because when I checked the mirror again, I didn't see one set of headlights. I saw 3. They weren't chasing me anymore. They were hurting me. The road narrowed. Sheer cliffs on one side, jagged rock walls on the other. The headlights behind me fanned out, blocking any chance of turning back. I was trapped. I drove harder, desperation turning to madness. My chest ached. My arms trembled. But I couldn't stop. If I stopped, it was over. And then I saw something ahead. A tunnel, carved through the mountain, its mouth yawning wide and dark. It was my only chance. I plunged inside, the darkness swallowing me whole. My headlights cut through the dust and stone, the roar of my engine echoing like thunder. Behind me, the headlights followed. I gritted my teeth, every nerve screaming. This wasn't just about escape anymore. This was survival. This was war. And I swore, as the tunnel walls closed around me, that I would not let them win. Not without a fight. The tunnel swallowed everything. My headlights were the only thing keeping the blackness from devouring me whole. The walls were raw stone, jagged and damp, and the echoes of my tires bounced off them like gunshots. Behind me, multiple sets of headlights flared in the rear view, glowing like predator eyes in the dark. My grip tightened on the wheel. Every nerve in my body told me this was it. I had been pushed into a cage, a place where the hunt would end. But some stubborn corner of my mind refused. Not here. Not like this. I pressed harder on the gas, the engine roaring in protest. The tunnel stretched on, a winding serpent through the mountain. Couldn't see the end. For a moment, panic surged. What if there was no end? What if this tunnel was a trap? A place carved to swallow men like me? The laughter started then. First, faint. A low chuckle that I thought was my imagination. But it grew, rising over the echo of engines, until it filled the tunnel completely. It wasn't coming from my car. It wasn't even coming from behind me. It was in the walls, in the stone, in my skull. The grinning man's laugh. I shouted just to hear my own voice, to remind myself I was still here, still real. Stop. What do you want from me? The tunnel gave no answer. Only the laugh. I swerved around a bend, tires skidding dangerously close to the wall. Sparks sprayed as my mirror scraped stone. Behind me, the headlights held steady, impossibly precise. Then I saw a faint glow ahead. The tunnel's mouth. Relief and terror surged together. If I could just reach it, maybe I could lose them on the open road. Maybe daylight would break their spell. But when I burst out of the tunnel, my blood ran cold. The road ended in a cliff. I slammed the brakes, the car fishtailing violently. Gravel sprayed into the abyss as I skidded sideways, coming to a stop inches from the guardrail. My chest heaved, my vision blurred. For a moment, silence. Then the Corolla emerged. It slowed, perfectly in control, and stopped 50 feet behind me. The headlights cut through the night, bathing my car in white light. The driver's door opened. He stepped out. For the first time, I saw his face. It was blank, utterly blank. His skin pale, his eyes dark voids, his mouth a straight line. No emotion, no humanity. He looked like a shadow carved into flesh, a man-shaped absence. The passenger door opened next. The grinning man stepped out, stretching his arms wide as though greeting an old friend. His smile split his face. Too wide, too sharp. He walked toward me slowly, savoring every step. "You've done well," he said at last, his voice hoarse, like dry leaves scraping across pavement. "Most don't make it this far." My hands shook on the wheel. "Why me? What do you want?" He tilted his head, amused. "Because you looked back. That's all it takes." I didn't understand. "What are you talking about?" His grin widened. "Back at the motel. You saw me. You let me in." "I didn't let you. You did." He interrupted, his voice sharp, final. "Once you see us, once you know us, we belong to you, and you belong to us." I shook my head violently. "No, I don't belong to you. I'm not." The driver took a step forward, silent, his eyes locked on mine. And for a moment, I felt something pressing inside my skull, like hands trying to pry open my thoughts. Cold, heavy, unstoppable. The grinning man crouched, bringing his face close to mine through the glass. "You can run for miles. You can scream until your throat tears. But the moment you saw me, your story was written." I fumbled for my phone, desperate, irrational. Maybe if I recorded him, maybe if I had proof. He laughed, louder, shaking his head. "Go ahead. Record. Show the world. Do you think they'll believe you? Or do you think they'll laugh? Like I do?" His face pressed closer. His breath fogged my window. And then, with a suddenness that made my heart seize, He whispered, "You're not the first. You won't be the last." Behind him, more headlights appeared. Cars. 3, 4, 5 of them, rolling silently out of the darkness. Each one stopped in a perfect line. Engines humming. Doors opened. Figures stepped out. Men. Women. Young. Old. All of them blank-faced like the driver, grinning like the man. Dozens of them. My vision swam. It wasn't 2 men. It wasn't 3. It was an army. The grinning man stepped back, arms spread wide as if presenting them to me. "Do you see now? Do you understand?" "No," I whispered. My voice cracked. "I don't. I don't want to." His smile flickered, just for a moment, something darker flashing beneath it. "Then you'll learn. The hard way." He raised his hand. The figures behind him moved in unison, stepping forward as one. I screamed, slamming the car into reverse, skidding backward toward the tunnel. My tires burned, the smell of rubber thick in the air. The headlights of the approaching cars blinded me, but I didn't care. I would rather crash, rather burn, than let them touch me. The grinning man's laughter followed me into the tunnel, echoing until it became the sound of the mountain itself. As I plunged back into darkness, one thought pounded through my mind, louder than the roar of my engine, louder than his laugh. They weren't chasing me anymore. They were guiding me. And whatever waited at the end of this road, it wasn't freedom. It was them. The headlights cut through the empty stretch of highway as Michael gripped the steering wheel tighter than he ever had in his life. His heart was pounding not only from fear but also from exhaustion. The night had been long, terrifying, and unrelenting. Every mile seemed heavier, every shadow taller, every silence louder. He could no longer tell if it was the sound of his engine or the sound of his own racing heartbeat that roared in his ears. The red Corolla had vanished hours ago, swallowed by the labyrinth of desert roads. But the absence of its lights in the mirror did nothing to comfort him. He knew deep down in his bones that the men inside hadn't given up. They were hunters, patient, merciless, and he, against all odds, had somehow slipped from their grasp for now. He replayed everything in his head: the motel, the strange stare of the man in the shadows, the pursuit across hundreds of miles, the attempt at the gas station, that twisted grin when the man tried to wrench open his car door. None of it felt real anymore. And yet, his body carried the proof-shaking hands. Shallow breath. Eyes that refused to blink too long for fear of missing something lurking in the dark. Michael wanted to go home. He wanted to see his father. He wanted to feel the warmth of family, of safety. But more than anything, he wanted to believe that the nightmare was over. But the desert had a way of stripping away illusions. He pulled into a roadside diner sometime past midnight. The neon sign flickered faintly, half the letters dead, the rest buzzing as though on the verge of collapse. Inside, a lone waitress leaned against the counter, flipping through a magazine. The place smelled of coffee left too long on the burner and the faintest trace of cigarette smoke. Michael slid into a booth by the window, his eyes automatically scanning the parking lot outside. Every car, every shadow. His nerves were strung so tight he could barely hold the menu the waitress handed him. "Rough night?" she asked, her voice gentle but weary, like someone who'd seen too many lost souls drift through at this hour. "You have no idea," Michael muttered. He ordered coffee. Not because he wanted it, but because he needed something to anchor him. Something warm to remind him he was still here, still alive. The first sip burned his tongue, but he welcomed the pine it grounded him. That was when he saw it. Not the Corolla, not headlights, but a reflection. In the window across from him, just faintly, a man stood at the edge of the parking lot. Tall, motionless. His outline was blurred by the neon glow, but Michael recognized the posture. The stillness. The silence. The man from the motel. Michael's stomach dropped. He blinked hard. Once. Twice, but the reflection remained. And worse, the man's head tilted slightly, as if amused that Michael had spotted him. That same slow, deliberate gesture he had seen before, etched into his mind like a brand. Michael's hands shook as he set the cup down. They found me, he whispered to himself. He threw a few bills on the table and bolted out the back door of the diner, sprinting toward his car. His lungs burned. His legs felt weak, but adrenaline shoved him forward. He jumped inside, locked the doors, and fumbled for the keys. His breathing came ragged, uneven. When he finally turned the ignition, the engine roared to life yet over its sound. He swore he heard something else. A laugh. Soft. Mocking. Carried on the night air. He sped out of the lot, tires screeching against the cracked pavement. The road opened before him again, long and merciless. The diner faded into the distance, but the dread followed him, heavier than ever. Hours later, as dawn began to stain the horizon pink, Michael's exhaustion was complete. His eyes blurred, his mind numbed. But he kept driving. Stopping meant giving them a chance. And he couldn't not now. Not when his father was waiting. When Michael finally pulled into his father's small house, the sun was already climbing. The familiar sight, the white paint peeling from the porch, the old rocking chair, the flower beds his father still tended despite aching joints, brought him the first sliver of peace he'd felt in days. His father stepped outside, squinting against the morning light. Gray hair ruffled by the breeze. His frame smaller than Michael remembered, but his eyes warm. "Son," he said simply, his voice carrying both surprise and relief. Michael stepped out of the car, and for a moment, just standing there, the world felt right again. But as he embraced his father, as the scent of home washed over him, his eyes drifted to the street. A red Corolla drove slowly past. Not stopping. Not chasing. Just passing. But in the passenger seat, a figure turned its head and smiled. The same smile. The same promise. This was not over. Michael felt his father's arms tighten around him, grounding him, reminding him what was real. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to breathe. He had survived the road, survived the shadows. And though the threat still lingered, though he might never truly escape it, he knew this, he would not face it alone. For the first time in days, Michael allowed himself to exhale, to feel the weight of fear lift, if only slightly, because sometimes, the most terrifying monsters were not the ones who lurked in the shadows, but the ones who thrived on making you believe you were forever trapped in them. And Michael, scarred, shaken, but unbroken, had decided he would not give them that power.